enough business. So there is a child psychology theory from British pediatrician and psychoanalyst Winnicott called the good enough mother. It's from his book Playing and Reality. And this is basically what it means, according to Winnicott, to be a good enough mother. A good enough mother is a balancing act. It's a balancing act between 1, serving the infant's every need, and 2, gradually allowing the infant to experience what it's like to not have its every need immediately met. So good enough mothering is the child being able to be okay with not having everything all the time, all at once. I'll say it again. Good enough mothering is the child being able to be okay with not having everything all the time, all at once. I've been aware of this theory for a long time. I studied psychology in undergraduate school. And then recently, somewhere in the last 6 months, between last training retreat and now, I read this article in the New York Times called The Good Enough Life. And basically just another angle on the observation of how we have really become like this, instantaneous need culture, to have our needs instantaneously met, and that there's something wrong if we can't have them instantaneously met. And so much of what's sold out there, including in the coaching industry, is instantaneous. So the article in The Good Enough Life had me thinking about the good enough business. I forgot one important part about the good enough mother, is that the good enough mother, supporting the child and being able to be okay with not having everything all the time, is so that eventually the child has the agency to choose. That's the important part. So eventually the child will learn to choose, because they don't expect to have everything given to them, done for them all the time, immediately, every time. So again, New York Times article, Good Enough Life, had me thinking about the good enough business. What might that look like? I asked myself. What might that feel like? I asked myself. How might that transform the HSE tendency to feel, what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? Shame for being who I am. And how might the concept of the good enough business shortcut the need for shame shields? What could that look like? Deep breath. And let it out. So the good enough business is speaking to this shame because your business is not making enough money. Or shame because you're not further along yet. Shame because your business doesn't look like the other businesses like yours that you see on social media. And all the ways that I've watched for years HSEs beat themselves up for all of those reasons. My business doesn't look like all these other businesses that I see online. I am not making the money yet. I'm taking too long. Not enough, 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 not enough. What if where you are right now was good enough? What if you accepted where you are right now as good enough? So, most likely your ego mind is going, what? If I accept where I am right now as good enough, how will I ever get anything done? How will I ever get further than where I am right now? And my response is, how is the beating up on yourself working for you? How is that moving you along? How is that got you accelerating? Are you happy? Are you feeling good? I know the answer is no, because I read your posts on the forum, I listen to you on CPC calls, I read your elite accountability forms, I support the coach team on supporting you on your elite accountability calls, I get summaries of what happened on your elite mastermind meetings, and nowhere in there am I hearing anyone saying, oh my gosh, you know what? It was so great. I beat up on myself like really bad this week, and wow, you should have seen what I got done. I just blew through my to-do list. Best thing I could have done. I just railed on myself. You suck. You're not further along. What's wrong with you? And oh, wow. Oh, it was just like, oh, it was so good. It was like practically like having an orgasm. I was like, wah. I am not seeing that anywhere in the community. All I'm seeing is the cycle. So the good enough business. First of all, being okay with where you are. And that you're not meant to have it all right now. What if we made a 2-year plan? And what if that 2-year plan had accountability? Where do you think you'd be in 2 years with that? I can tell you you're not going to be where you are right now. Can that be good enough? What if you aren't meant to have a 6-figure business? What if that's just not what you're meant to have? What if that's not what you have as a dire need? Because not everyone in this room does. Not everyone in this room is meant to have that. You wouldn't want it. You wouldn't want it. And I know I can say so confidently that you wouldn't want it, because if you did, you would be doing it. Or what if you maybe tried out, like just maybe, like what it is to have like a $30,000 business first, and really felt that, and kind of got the sense and the process, like I can handle that. And then what if you actually worked with a dedicated team who then supported you and be like, hey, are you ready for a $50,000 business? Great, awesome, let's create that now. Okay, good, because we got this awesome 30K foundation. And then you just move along, you're like, actually, this is really great. You know what now? I think, yeah, I am ready for a 6-figure business. Awesome, beautiful. We're ready to help you create it. But if you're over here at 15K and just beating yourself up because you can't get to 6K, and you're spending all your time and energy just in shame and all of that it takes out of you, and you just spend so much time thinking about it and ruminating on it and in your shadows about it and coping around it and just marinating in it and hiding from it and trying to push through and then crashing or combo plattering and then just splattering. What if we took all of that energy and we just put it into the good enough business? And what if you got to use privilege of agency to decide what that is for you? Lisa gets to decide what it is for her. Jen gets to decide what it is for her. Manon gets to decide what it is for her. Celeste gets to decide what it is for her. And Celeste doesn't look like Nova's. It's not supposed to. And Celeste doesn't look like all of those who are out there posting on social media where we really have no idea what's going on behind their closed doors. What if you could use privilege of agency to design your business from your essential self and let it be good enough? Where's the shame in that? Deep breath. And let it out. So what would that do to the shame? How would it look different? How would it feel different? How would you experience it differently? So the Business Miracles Creation Pathway. This is a tool to support you in really being able to identify what it is that you want and just what it is that's good enough in this moment for you now. This tool, the creation pathway, also came out of similar observations that I've seen throughout the community over and over and over again, which is basically like the experience of frustration or the experience of really beating up on oneself, and all centered around that essence of what's wrong with me and not enough. That I am not enough. And it would typically have to do with, here is where it is that I want to be in my business, and why am I not there yet? And so with, combing through so many of your posts and CPC calls and really, looking at so many of the patterns, is what emerged was the Business Miracles creation pathway. So where the pathway starts is at the top, which is what I want. Really identifying what you want for yourself in your business. And of course, the OFTU as a tool can really support you if you're not even really sure. Now, what I'll say is that those that I've started working with on this tool already, that what tends to come out of working with the Business Miracles creation pathway is that so many times what an HSE is saying that they want in their business is not actually what their essential self wants. And let's write that down. Is that when working with HSEs in the creation pathway, and as we look at what it is that the HSE says that they want, that the majority of the time what they're saying they want is actually not what their essential self wants. What they're saying they want is coming from their social self. It's coming from what they think they should have. It's coming from what they have created as the meaning of what a quote-unquote successful business is. Or it's coming from comparison to others. Or it's coming from comparison to others' expectations of them. Or it's coming from comparison to past or future self. So for example, it might be like, well, when I was in corporate, I made this much, so I should be making this much in my business now. That would be a comparison to past self. Or a comparison to future self is like, well, I'm almost turning 60. And as a person who's turning 60, I should be making this much. And when again we go through the dismantling and distangling and we get clear, the HSE is like, wow, that's like not really what I want. And how do we do the detangling? Well, we go through the pathway. So then from what it is that supposedly the HSE wants, we look at the next step on the pathway, which is the doable actions I am willing to take. And very often, the doable actions that the HSE is willing to take does not match what's needed to create what it is that they want. Which leads us to the next step, which is my expectation for results created. So let's say, for example, it's like, well, what I want is a 6-figure business. You go into inquiry and like, well, what is that about? Well, that's what business success is. Like, you're successful in business if you're generating 6 figures. Okay, so what doable actions am I willing to take? All right, are you ready? Are you willing to be on the speaker circuit? Are you willing to be speaking like every 2 weeks? And are you willing to take the actions to go out and like get those speaking engagements and align those, set those up? And are you willing to travel so that you can go to those speaking engagements? Are you willing to give a call to action at every speaking engagement? Are you willing to create the materials so that people can easily enroll at those speaking engagements? Are you willing to then be able to immediately set up systems so that you're following up and processing those enrollments? And then the HSE is like, well, not really. And so then we look at, well, the results experienced. And what the Business Miracles Creation Pathway is about is alignment. Write that down. It's about finding and coming into alignment. So then we go back into the creation pathway and we look at, well, what are the doable actions that I am willing to take right now in the next 30 days, let's say, and or over the next 6 to 12 months? Okay. Well, those are the actions that I am willing to take if I'm really being honest and I'm coming from my essential self. Like I'm not willing to take right now all of the actions that are needed for a 6-figure business, but I am willing to be in process with that. But here are the outer actions that I'm willing to take right now. Okay, well then let's adjust the expectations based on the doable actions that you're willing to take. And then by adjusting the expectations, then we can go back and we can adjust what it is that I really want. And I can be willing to say, like, you know what, right now, I'm good with 5 clients. I'm good with that. And then we can go down to the results experienced and we can just fill that in. Like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be working with 5 clients. And I'll be taking doable actions to support the enrollment and the ongoing support of those 5 clients. I'm clear about my expectations now, and so these are the results. I got it. I'm good. I'm in alignment. Now, those doable actions will look different for each HSE. For hiders, most likely the doable actions that you will have to come into alignment around are what are the outer actions you are willing to take. For pushers, most likely where you're going to have to really look in terms of doable actions is what is some of the inner work that I really need to do so that I can get off this crazy pushing merry-go-round, actually experience some balance for myself, come back into who I am, really understand who my essential self is, and then get clear so that I'm not like just totally in a state of exhaustion. And as a combo platter, it will be a combination of the two. Of course, it's a combination for the two, can be a combination of the two for any of us. But my point being is that most likely you'll, depending on your coping mechanism, your doable actions will reflect that. And that's okay. Deep breath. And let it out. So, will the Business Miracles Creation Pathway get you 6 figures in the next 30 days? Nope. And I'm not going to tell you that it will. And then leave you blowing in the wind to figure it out on your own. But what it will do is, 1, it will give you a sense of peace. 2, it will bring you a sense of freedom, like Elle was talking about earlier. And from that peace and from that freedom, it will put you on the path to creating long-term, sustainable financial success. And that's what I'm interested in. So it will go and it will be a process and you will build over time. But you have to be willing to embrace the good enough business. That just like a child, you're not meant to have it all at once. And though we are not children in this room, it is time that we learned how to parent ourselves. And that we stopped looking back to the past and in all the ways that we were emotionally neglected as highly sensitives, and we stop projecting that past and the blame onto encounters that we have at Whole Foods or other aspects that are happening within our business, and to be able to accept and embrace and go through the process and the work of what is my good enough business right now, and to be using the creation pathway to support and to check in. You all have got to get off the horse of setting these expectations that are not a match for you. And you've got to get off the horse of beating yourself up for not meeting those expectations that are not a match for you. And instead, take that energy and invest it in creating from where you are right now. Deep breath and let it out.